come to order. The Honorable John W. Whitten, Jr. is presiding.
Try to speak where you all can hear me. Sometimes I have a little problem with my voice, but the purpose of the meeting here today is to take another look at the things that we are doing and have been doing in an effort to redistrict Tallahatchie County, its supervised districts, and then perhaps its JP districts also. We met here on the 15th and received and explored to some extent the plan prepared by Mr. Wilson, I believe his name is. And when we adjourned, the board stated that it would have its man, Mr. Tommy Gates, who's here with us, prepare a plan or plans in line with what the board thought was correct. We have not met with Mr. Gates until today, but he has come up with some plans. I talked to him. I didn't see the plans this morning, until this morning myself. I don't think anybody else did. But he has two plans that he proposes and that he has explained in some detail to the board, not a great deal of detail. And we will have those plans laid out here today for examination and for critique. You all can pick them apart, or we can't do. We can work on them ourselves if we don't like them. But I want to say this, that I appreciate it very much, and lots of other people did too. The fact that we conducted a very business-like meeting last time we were here. We'd like listeners to run the same way. We're all here to try to do one job. We got to redistrict the county. We want to do it fairly. Nobody wants it. We don't over anybody else about it, but everybody wants to respect the rights of others. Listen to those people who may disagree with you. And please don't call us, and we'll not call you all racist just because we don't agree with you. We may have other reasons. I'd like for us to go forward with this as quickly as possible, but at the same time take enough time to satisfy yourself if you have any questions, any information that you need, that you haven't got, you need in order to make a decision about what you think of the plan. Now, I would say without having been fully informed about it, that the board will listen carefully to your suggestions today. Then we'll set another date, and on that date we'll adopt a plan. We'll give notice to the public. And I doubt very seriously, although I hope we can, I doubt very seriously we agree on a plan today. If we could, we might avoid going to federal court now. The court is not the place to decide redistricting. The court itself says that it's not equipped to properly decide redistricting issues. But sometimes we have to go there. Sometimes that's a place to go. And, it's expensive, it's time consuming, but it can be done. But we hope that we'll all work toward doing something quickly enough so that we may have an opportunity to hold the elections on time. And Mr. Sayer wants to speak a minute or two before we talk to Mr. Gates. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. This is a continuation of the process, as you indicated, that we had begun. And last time we were together, which was about 2 weeks ago, it was indicated that Mr. Gates would draw some plans, and we had hoped that there would be some communication between Mr. Gates and Mr. Wilson in the interim period to share information and thoughts about this process. But my understanding is the two of you have not connected. Is that correct?
Well, we talked some here that
I mean, since that day, you have not called him, right? Okay. Well, Ms. Margaret Carey, who is the attorney representing the Tallahatchie County Redistricting Committee, as you know, went to Florida to deal with, to help out with family illnesses there for mother and grandmother. And because of the turn of events there, her stay has had to be extended. And so she's not here today. I wanted to indicate that she was really unavoidably detained with that. And Mr. Wilson, as you can see, is not here either because of problems that he ran into in getting here today. But we're going to proceed and look forward to hearing your presentation, and wonder if in connection with your presentation you have some printed materials and copies of the maps that we can work with while you're looking while you're presenting this?
I have some printed material that I'll pass out at the appropriate time. There are no copies of the maps except what's up here, but they'll be available if you want to copy the lines.
But there are no additional copies of that?
I would like to say one thing before. Since Mr. Stewart, the attorney for the board, specifically said that Mr. Gates and Mr. Wilson was going to get together and talk, for what reason you not contacting Mr. Wilson? Did you all discuss enough while you was here on the 15th, or you decided not to call him, or you wasn't going to make us a part of it, or what was the reason? Would you give a reason for that?
I guess I wasn't aware that I was directed in any way to discuss this with Mr. Wilson. He doesn't discuss with me when he draws a plan. We did discuss quite a bit before we left here, some of the various reasons, things that he said went into the makeup of the plan. That was the reason for the meeting. I heard from everybody here what went into that plan and why they wanted it that way. I think you'll be very pleased with this plan too, and I think you'll see that I've taken into effect quite a lot of what we heard that day.
Yeah, I understand that, but still.
Drawing one of these things, if you ever try to do it, it's to a large extent, it's a one-person job. The more input you get into it, the more confusion you get, and the less you get done, and the longer it takes, the more it costs. My intention was to draw the best plans I can draw and present them, I hope, to satisfy all the community. And that's what I'm hoping to bring to you today.
I would like to ask the board that since the map and the plans, when is the appropriate time for you to give us the information as far as it pertains to that map? Now, before the meeting starts? And I would like to say to the board that we need approximately 5 or 10 minutes to scan over this map before he starts talking about it, so that we will have an idea in our mind as to what he's talking about, and have an idea in our mind as to...
This is the existing.
That's the
district.
existing?
Yes.
Okay, do you
There's
have...
nothing new there.
Okay, where's
I'll
the...
show you that as we go along.
Okay, do
He
you
wants
have the
to
other
make a
one?
presentation.
Okay.
That's what we're here for.
He wants to do it in the form of...
And also, I would like to say to the board that we will need a copy of the map, since Mr. Wilson has not contacted our planner, in order to carry it back with us and let it go through the scrutiny of our planners, our attorneys. And we could have saved that problem possibly had he contacted our planners, as I was informed that he was instructed to do.
No, we didn't instruct him to do it. We just made it available. In other words, I didn't know whether Mr. Wilson or Mr. Gates, either one, wanted to talk to the other, but they both had some information, and apparently Mr. Gates thinks that they shared it to the extent it was necessary. But there will be maps furnished to you
Today.
today. I think we get them back in today.
If we have some that we can draw on, yes. We'll have to copy the lines from this, but they're very easy to do.
Okay. So this
If you have
time,
an old map, it will be very simple to put these lines on. I think that'll be apparent.
Get into the presentation.
Let's see his presentation.
so at this time, we would like to hear his presentation, if no further questions.
I suppose most everybody here was aware of the previous presentation, and I really did try to start from scratch. There are some similarities in what we were doing. One reason I don't have a number of maps nor handouts today is I brought two plans to the board, and I wasn't sure exactly which they would want to present here. They asked me to present both. So that's what we're doing today. They haven't made a decision between any of the plans presented, the one that they saw about 2 weeks ago, nor these two. So this is a presentation. They've seen it very briefly. They'll be seeing it again if we can twist this where everybody can see it. So this presentation to you is not the very first time they've seen it, but about an hour ago was the first time they've seen it. They haven't made up their mind yet, so everybody can have whatever input is required to help them make this decision. When I started this, obviously, the first reason we've got to redistrict is the population is out of kilter. and the districts. I think we looked at that some last time. You're allowed about a 10% population range between the highest and lowest districts from an ideal, and currently the county has 35.6% range, which is obviously unacceptable. District 5 has about 600 too many people. District 1 has about 600 too few, and there are some differences in some of the other districts too. So the first thing we have to do is move some people, or move some lines. We obviously want a fair and reasonable and legal solution to this that's fair to all the citizens. It's been decided in a number of cases and presented before that if you can maintain the core of the old districts, that is good. It's not required, but if you can maintain the core of the old districts, you should try to do that. This was one of the things the supervisors asked me to look at when I started to do this map, is see if I could do that. And avoid as many irregularities as possible. Try not to get really distorted, irregular districts. Keep them as compact and regular as possible. And then, of course,
Excuse me, will you repeat that again?
just saying to keep the districts as compact and regular as possible so that you don't have unusually shaped districts if possible. Now, that's not always possible, and that's not the highest priority. Probably the highest priority in this case, well, first the highest, I guess, is to get the percent of population right by district. Second high, and as evidenced by the fact that most of you are here, is to get a percentage of minorities in the districts that is acceptable to the county, to the community, to all the citizens. And this is what we started out to do. We were shown some of those numbers last time, and we have taken those into consideration in doing this. The reason I have two plans, I think I mentioned before that I like to first draw what I consider an ideal plan and see how it falls, almost regardless of the numbers. As it turns out, my two plans aren't extremely different from each other, and they're not terribly different in the core from the existing districts. I think some of the easiest way to show you is I will put up a few additions to this map. I purposely started, the map up here now is the existing districts. The brown lines that I believe most of you can see are the existing district lines. I have some little overlays that will show how these will change under the various plans that I propose.
Would it be possible to put up your alternate plans so we can see them side by side?
Didn't see what?
So we can see them side by side?
They're overlays and I can flip them back and forth for you.
You don't have one full plan?
May I present this, and then when we get through, if you'll ask questions, I'll present it any way you want to from there.
Go ahead.
This we'll call Plan 1, and it has been labeled that way in your handout that I'll give you. The only reason for delaying on the handout, Plan 1 and 2 are there. Any of you who have spoken to a group before know that if you start passing things out, everybody starts reading instead of listening, and they don't know a word you're saying. This is Plan 1. There are the primary changes from the existing plan or District 2 now takes in most of Sumner. A small portion, if you can see the red lines are the only changed lines. The brown lines remain just as they were. The changes over here were all done inside Charleston. Make this a little clear, and I'll change back and forth between these. This is coloring in the districts as I propose them under Plan 1. And the red lines are the changes that would be made inside the city of Charleston and Sumner. The brown lines are the existing district lines now. And you can see most of the changes were done inside the city limits. In Sumner, for instance, under the existing plan, District 2 reaches into a portion of southeast Sumner. Under this plan, District 2 will take in to the city limits of Sumner all the way around. There was one small change right down here at the bottom of Webb. You can see the districts are highly regular and easy for people to tell where they live and which district they're in. In Charleston, the existing district plan comes down like so. This is 2, 1, and 3. Propose a change that would drop that line straight down. I believe this is Highway 32, and out the same as the old line in this direction. It would run 1 block north of the old line direction. In other words, District 3 gains 1 block of people right here. District 3 needed to pick up a few people, and I believe that's about the only change in District 3 from the existing. District 1 gains people down this side of town. 2 loses that same area. The percentages under this plan are talking population. Well, go back to total population. It's a range of 4.8%, running from a high in District 4 of 3,128 people. And if you make, all this is on the handout that you'll be getting. I don't have a tremendous number of copies, but I believe we've got 15 or 20 that 3,128 people in District 4, a low of 2,981 people in District 3. But the 4.8 range is very close. Now, very frankly, what you've been listening for, I suppose, here to some extent, is what happened to the black-white percentages. Under this plan, which we'll call my Plan 1, they are probably very acceptable. I would have no problem whatever presenting this plan to anybody who wants to see it. They are slightly lower than the ones presented here 2 weeks ago. Under my Plan 2, we make some adjustments in that direction. That's the reason for Plan 2, honestly, is so that we've got something that we can all live with. These percentages, total population, and again, I'll pass these out, but in District 1, it's 59.6% white, 39.8% black. 2 is 37.
Excuse me, could you get a vote names population too, please?
Yes. These are total population right now. Just for ease, why don't I just call out just the black percentages by district? Everybody knows the other half is the white percentage. And I'll tell first the total and then the voting age. Okay. Black percentage, total population. District 1, 39.8. District 2, 62.3. 3 is 35.8. 4 is 79.6. And 5 is 73.4. You can see there are 2 black districts that are well above 70% and one at 62%. As I say, with a 58% black population, this, under most any stretch of the imagination, should be a reasonable plan. Acceptable depends upon to who, but it's not unreasonable anyway.
You're gonna do the VAP?
VAP.
That's it. Okay, same numbers, voting age population. District 1, 34.9% black. District 2, 57.0 black. District 3, 31.0 black. District 4, 73.8. And District 5, 68.0. Suppose a reason at this point not to simply move on to Plan 2. Are there any questions first on Plan 1 before we?
Yes, let me ask one question. Okay, now, it's different in Plan 1 and in Plan 2. Okay, those figures you just called off was in Plan 1.
That's Plan 1.
Okay, why don't we get a copy of those figures down that we can change?
They're all tied together, but at this point, everybody's ready to look at them, so this is the number of copies we ran. Not as many as I thought, but let's just spread those out however seems suitable. The supervisors have copies of them, and if you can pass a few of those back through the rest of the group here. And of course, we do have masters. We can run more copies of these. Again, I didn't run a lot of copies because I wasn't sure we were going to present both plans. There are 6 pages here. The first 3 pages, you've noticed up in the right top corner, we've labeled 1, and the next 3 are labeled 2. Yes.
Question. I understand, B5 had a population, had 621 people more than the norm.
Sounds right.
Okay. Where did you put those people in your shift? Since B4 needed 247 people. B1 needed 106, B3 needed 162 people, and B1 needed 480 people, and B2 had 250 people. Too many.
See, we're talking about 5 here, which is this area. It was too large by, we'd say 600 some odd people. And that was the main object of what we were doing, is how to get those 600 people out of 5 and into somewhere else so that they were appropriate. What I did was, you can see from here, I removed this side of 5, and primarily that went into 4, which needed some people. And I removed Sumner proper, the remainder of it that's not a part of 2 now, and put it into 2. So that's where the people came from, is Sumner and right here.
I think we're gonna have to look at that map so we can see exactly where they came from. We can't sit out here and tell where those people came from. So we're gonna have to have time to look at that
Well,
map
we'll be
to see where
glad
they
to
came
go
from.
into that in any detail. In fact, I've got some census maps over here with some of the population plotted on it, and we can look at that more closely if you'd like to. Are we ready to move on to Plan 2? Any more
Okay.
questions on 1 first?
Okay, now what you're saying is, in summer, for instance, in B5. Why about you, where's that line, that red line coming down? It's coming down the city limits on the backside? So basically what you're doing is you're putting the whole city of Sumner in B2. So that's approximately about 300-some people being taken out right there, right? Give or take.
I don't know that number right offhand, but
I think it's about 301.
sounds reasonable.
By 1980 census. Okay, and Webb, I can't understand it because you don't have that Webb map. So what's happening in Webb?
This is the web map right here. The brown line is the existing Sumner web. Actually, Webb stays almost the same, and I honestly don't recall right now why I took this little corner in. We'd have to look back and see exactly what's in there, but that's the only change I made in Webb. That went into 2 as opposed to whatever it's in now.
I have a question. On these printed materials, do you include voting age population statistics?
That's page 3.
Okay.
In the printed material, you've got 2 sections, Plan 1, Plan 2. Each is 3 pages long. The first page is total population. The second page is total population broken down by racial percentages. And the third page is voting age broken down by racial percentages.
Okay, and on this line right here, that's 32 coming into Charleston, running down. Okay, what you're saying here, this is 32 coming into Charleston, this is Main Street here, and this is the courthouse here?
Right.
Okay. And this what goes up what we call smoking, right? Is that correct, Mr. Guy?
On the map, it's called Pleasant Street.
Right.
That's correct.
Okay.
This- Yeah, okay, that's Pleasant.
So we couldn't steal that from that.
Pardon?
They just made statements that weren't there, that not there, so we have to look at them, so we don't.
We look at it. I'm trying to get some clear understanding.
That's the question I asked.
Okay. Let me go ahead and present Plan 2 because I think it may answer a few questions and maybe raise a few too.
I think you should ask as many questions as you can.
The
Get it on the record. I don't think we ought to have
object, obviously, of Plan 2, since I don't think anybody wants to go to court and, in effect, the threat of litigation was waived the other day. Yes.
What did you do with Plan 1 that was different in our initial plan that we submitted?
Primarily, if you remember, District 5 was a,
Bow tie shape.
yes. This was your plan as sketched by somebody for me. Not your plan, the previous plan we looked at. There are, and honestly, I have not studied it hard, and I am not prepared to compare the 2 plans, except superficially the way any of us can do looking at it right here. We can see that there's primarily, I took this part of 4 into 5 instead of this part, and made some changes in Sumner. There are some differences over in here too, obviously. But I believe I made changes in District 3 up in Charleston itself rather than this area of land over here. Those are some of the primary differences. There's also a little difference right up in here.
So in other words, your Plan 1 of which we had a 66% black BAP in B2, your Plan 1 bring our 66% down to 57% in District 2. 9% difference.
Sounds about right.
And in 4, you take away 5 percentage points.
I don't recall what yours was, but it sounds reasonable, yes. Okay, if we can, let's look now at, obviously, the reason I made a Plan 2 was to try to get something that will be acceptable on these percentages. Because it was clear to me, the meeting the other day, you had some numbers that, it's also clear in drawing the map where some of this weird shape came from. And contrary to what both sides may have thought, I'm not sure there was a lot of political motivation there. It was a very simple, easy thing for the man with a computer to do. But that's beside the point. The change in my plans 1 and 2 do not affect at all districts 3, 4, nor 5. They are the same under both plans. The change is entirely in districts 1 and 2. And it was done this manner. There is a also the green line on here is Plan 2. Maybe that's a little clearer because primarily okay, there's some changes in Charleston. There's a change right here in this area that becomes a part of 1 now that was previously a part of 2. This is the only change outside of Charleston itself, is this area right here. Inside Charleston, if you will notice, the red lines are my first proposal, and they're nice and regular, and it's pretty easy to tell anybody which district you're in and where you live and what kind of plan we're working with. I determined, looking at the percentages, though, that to get a more acceptable plan to this group, I needed to add black population to District 2, so that I had that was a district where I went down to 57%, I believe, voting age population, and about 62% total, something like that. I decided I needed to get that up and do it at the expense of District 1. I reached over into Charleston with this green line to pick up a high concentration of black population here. I let District 1 reach in here and take a high concentration of white population to offset it. And this little area up here that changed is also significantly white. So it offsets the difference. Now, if you look back to Table 2, or Plan 2, we'll look at some of the percentages and what happened to them. Just purely coincidence, the range on the total population stayed the same at 4.8. There was a little bit of shift, but it was in the two districts. It had nothing to do with the range. 1 and 2 were already very close, and they stayed very close. On total population, we now have 3 districts with more than 70% black population. Reading down like I did before, for those of you who don't have a copy of this, and I'm sure we can get some more copies when we get through it, like that. District 1, total population shows 31.9% black. District 2 is an even 70% black. And this was the primary change. District 3, 4, and 5 stay the same at 35.8, 79.6, and 73.4. You can see what we did was move black population from 1 into 2 so that it was a stronger minority district. When the voting age population, essentially the same things. The black population in District 1 dropped to 27.6 voting age and climbed to 65% even in District 2 voting age population. 3, 4, and 5 remain the same, so on voting age population, there are now 3 districts at 65% or above that are black. The 2 remaining districts are 71.5% white and 68.9% white.
Mr. Gates, so that I understand the way in which the materials are presented, in each of these tables you have what's called present districts and you have proposed districts, right?
Yes.
Okay, now when you say present districts, you're referring to the districts as they exist at the present time? Is that correct?
They exist at the present time, 1990 census data.
What do you do in summer? You still, on the west side of the county, you let it stay remain the same?
No change in between my plans 1 and 2, there are no change in the west side of the county. In fact, districts 3, 4, and 5 are unchanged. 2 is unchanged in this area except over here
In Charleston.
on the far east side, yes.
And so you're saying the voting age population for B5 on the Plan 1 and the voting age population on the B5 and Plan 2 remain the same?
Yes.
And the voting age population for B4 on the Plan 1 and the voting age population on the Plan 2 remain the same? And voting age population on the Plan 2 was 57% on the Plan 1 is 57%, and on the Plan 2 it moves up to 65%.
Which district you talking about?
District 2.
District 2. Yes, in Plan 1 it was 57% voting age. Plan 2 it goes to 65.
So in fact, everything you've done comes short of what we presented to this board,
No, I don't believe so.
percentage-wise, voting age percentage-wise.
What you presented, my numbers are right, showed a voting age population, a 67%, a 77.
For which districts are you referring to?
Excuse me, District 2, 67%. We'll make comparisons.
Do you have
Looks like
a
I
chart?
dropped in one and maybe I went up in another. Okay, now, these were my calculations of your numbers, and I think they're accurate. In District 2, you were asking for 67%, and my Plan 2 is 65%. In District 3, you were asking for 77.9.
No,
And I have-
not 3.
4, 77.9. Mine drops to 73.8, but in 5, we make that up. You asked for 63.8, and mine goes to 68.0. So I made you stronger in 5, a little weaker in 4, where you're already very, very strong, and 2 percentage points difference in 2.
Is there some reason why you found it necessary to reduce the black voting strength in districts 2 and 4 from their present circumstance? And how do you feel that complies with the requirements of the 1965 Voting Rights Act?
If you're going to strengthen one district, you're going to weaken another.
Not necessarily. If you strengthen District
Pardon me, sir.
5, you may find that you weaken districts 1 and 3, which are not regarded under our framework as winnable districts, but where you reduce or dilute the black voting strength in what should be districts in which the black community has a fair opportunity to win, you may have a vote dilution under the 65 Voting Rights Act. Isn't that true?
Your question lasted long enough that I lost what you were asking for, but
Let
No.
me make it simple. There's no question that when you adjust population among districts, the relative racial percentages will go up and down. But the principle under the 65 Voting Rights Act is to create the maximum number of electable black
I did quite a bit
districts.
of reading since we were here 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, and I have not found that statement.
Have you looked
Yet I
at the
would
Jeffers
like to
versus
see
Clinton
that.
case?
I would like to see it if you
But you haven't read the Jeffers versus Clinton
Go ahead.
case. When Jeffers versus Clinton, which was recently affirmed by the United States Supreme Court, it says expressly that. And it says that the obligation under, well, you can look skeptically at me, but it does say that, because I have read that and I have studied that case. And it says that
It's an interesting concept.
it's the law. It's not just a concept. It's the law affirmed by the United States Supreme Court, which makes it the law of all the land, which applies to every state of which we are one. And it says that the obligation under the law is not only to create a situation in which people have the right to register and to vote and to run candidates and to campaign, but they need to have a fair, reasonable, and effective opportunity to actually win elections in which black candidates run head-to-head with white candidates. Now, the benchmarks that are used to understand what creates a winnable district may vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, because one of the factors, one of the key factors, which the courts and the Justice Department look at in evaluating what constitutes winnable, is the election history in that community, okay? So when you're talking about making population shifts among these districts, it's important not to take black population from possibly winnable districts and reduce those percentages in order to create another district which comes closer to being winnable. So when you reduce districts 2 and 4, which are the 2 districts which have the strongest black populations, in order to increase 5 and bring it up closer to standard or benchmark, you're working at cross purposes under the framework or guidelines of the 65 Voting Rights Act, right?
Let me quote you 3 percentages. The present situation in District 2 is 64. Okay, I'm looking at total population.
Now, I'm looking at
voting age.
your page 3 on plan, your table 3 for Plan 2. For District 2, you show a black
Back
voting
up.
age population of 66.8% for the present district, and your proposed district is 65%, right? So that's a reduction of
Flip back one
3.8%.
page. Your original question was what was my intent or my purpose in moving them down. and I had no intent nor purpose in moving them down. On total population, you will notice in each case, those three districts went up.
We're looking at
Didn't change
voting age
tremendously, but
population.
they did change.
But voting age population is what's important, because those are the
It's
folks who
important
actually
this
vote.
year.
What?
That's important this year.
It's important every year when you're talking about,
This plan will stand for 2 years, and that percentage will change tremendously over that 10 years. The
excuse,
census will be good for 10 years, right? So a lot of these people who aren't voting age population right now will become voting age population.
have you done a study of the ages of the people who are under 18?
Have you?
No, and that's why I'm not attempting to use the total population figure. We're talking voting age population as we find it now, and this is an election year.
Is what we're told to base the one man, one vote concept.
How can you
But you're not-
sit there and say that when people under 18 cannot vote? That don't even make no sense to me, and I'm not an attorney.
But he's talking about one person, one vote, which is a diversion from what we're talking about. We're not talking about population deviations now. We're talking about creating electable districts. And when you're talking about creating electable districts, you're talking voting age population. When you're talking one person, one vote, you're talking total population. But those are separate discussions, and they're separate standards. And when we're talking about the 1965 Voting Rights Act, your obligation is to create in this next election, which is 1991, not 1999, districts which maximize the opportunity for the black community to elect representatives of its own choice. We've talked about that standard from lots of different angles. But the one thing that I don't understand in terms of your intent and the structure of your concept here is why it makes sense to you in drawing black population into District 5 that you would use 2 and 4 and reduce them in order to accomplish that result. That's working at cross purposes for the objectives of the 65 Voting Rights Act. That's not just a concept, that's the law that we're talking about that you're using to determine goals and objectives here. And I'm asking why do that when you could have maintained 2 and 4 at those voting age populations and protected the electability in a context as we discussed last time with you. If you do a study of the election history in Tallahatchie County, you'll find that no black has ever been elected to the Board of Supervisors. So everything that you can do to protect the electability of those districts must be done. Why did you draw from 2 and 4 rather than 1 and 3 in trying to create an enhancement in 5?
We have 3 black districts above 65% voting age population. There's no specific answer to what you said. I didn't set out to draw from one district to draw to another. I did set out not to create a bow tie plan, for instance. I think that's an unreasonable and unworkable thing for a county to have to put up with if they don't have to do it. I can gerrymander a plan to probably 90% voting age population. The concepts that you mentioned are probably valid. I believe that this plan meets them as well as yours does. There are 3 districts at over 65% black population, a voting age population. 4 districts at over 70% black total population. I think that is a very reasonable solution, considering how reasonable and regular we end up with the districts, and for people to understand where they live and where they vote.
Did you say 4 districts with over?
3 districts.
You said there were 4 districts with over.
Pardon me, I misspoke then.
Okay.
3.
Are you familiar with the Voters' Right Act of 1965?
Originally.
Are you familiar with Section 2 of the Voters' Right Act of 1965?
Would you like to quote it to me?
No, I mean, you're the planner. You have to draw it. You have to deal with the criteria. I want to know what you...
I'm
are you
familiar with the criteria, yes, sir. If you start asking me sections, no, I'm not going to quote anything to you. I'm going to ask you to quote it to me.
I didn't ask you to quote it. I asked you were
we
you
don't-
familiar with it. I asked you were you familiar with the section 2. That's all I asked you. I didn't want you to tell me what it is. I just want you to be familiar with it. Are you familiar with section 2 of the Voting Rights Act of 1965? Because as being a planner, you should know if you don't know. Okay. The next question is, what of the Plan 1? What is your deviation? What is the deviation for Plan 1?
From what?
You got to be under the criteria of 10. So what is the deviation from 1 through 10?
4.8,
4.8 and District 2,
same thing.
4.8.
Any you have a question?
Yeah, now, according to my understanding, you were saying based on, I believe it was your plan too, that by the year 2000, we should have certain percentages in, but in other words, you were saying 2 years, right? Is the plans
No.
drawn up
I
on
only
a now
said-
basis or in advance of now?
Plan is drawn up on right now.
Okay, well, I couldn't understand how that part there came in there. And, are
It's
you familiar
obvious,
with
looking
the,
at the numbers, that your voting strength will grow over the next few years.
you do work with comprehensive
You don't
planners?
know that. You don't know what population shifts will take place over that decade, right? I mean, no one has that crystal ball. Whether we'll lose population, people move out,
Okay.
people die, right? You don't know that any more than we do.
And,
We'll make some bets and come back in 10 years.
No, it's not relevant to this process.
and another thing, you mentioned the bow tie. You work with comprehensive planners. How long have you worked with them?
About 2.5, 3 years now.
Okay, well, I think you should look at B5 on the original plan that comprehensive planners drawn up. They the one that put the bow tie there. And if there's any question about the bow tie, I think you should refer those questions to
I'm
them.
familiar with some of those.
We left that
Some
bow tie like they
circumstances
had
are drawn that time, but I don't like that.
Yeah, this is 5 now.
What precincts, what precincts, can you tell us what precincts lost voters over the past 10 years?
I did not try to analyze the data by precinct. I think we mentioned here last time that we found out the data the peer committee was using, something's wrong with it in this county, but I did not have time to try to figure out what was wrong with it.
I believe in the 1980 census, Beat 4 precinct had about 2,000 people, and now it's down to 1,347. It seems under Mr. Wilson's plan, it brought that precinct back to pretty much where it was. And the precincts that lost, he added population, the counties, beats that lost population, and the beat that needed to give population, which was 5 to 4, and shifted it over to 3 where it was needed, and 2 from 3 to 2 and 2 to 1. What was wrong with that plan? And who directed you to redirect that?
I didn't really use this plan one way or the other.
So we had no input then. If you didn't use this plan one way or the other, the black community had no input.
I listened to everything that was said in the previous meeting, and yes, I saw the plan. We talked about, matter of fact, I was cross-examined to some length about what I liked and didn't like about a plan that I'd only seen for about 10 minutes. If you start to make the best plan you can, you try not to start with anybody else's. You try to start from the base data and see what you can do with it. And that's what I tried to do.
That's not quite accurate.
I did state,
That's not quite accurate. You told us that you started with the premise that you would try to retain the core of the existing districts. That means that you started with the present existing plan. You didn't start carte blanche as if there was no plan at all in front of you, correct?
that's right.
Okay, I just want to be accurate on the record about what we're doing.
Now, that was not the overriding thing that I was doing, but it was
But it was your starting point.
one of the starting points.
Okay, but so it isn't accurate to say you started with no preconceptions as to what the plan should look like, right?
Well, move back a step, yes. I started out to see if I could retain those cores.
Okay.
I got one question in reference to what you said also. Get a percentage of minorities acceptable to counties, to the county and the community. What do you mean by that?
A plan that all of you will accept so that we don't end up in court.
Well, let me ask you one question. How do you think, you sort of said we don't want to end up in court. How do you think that we're not going to end up in court when you're not even accepting the blacks? We don't have no other choice but to end up in court. We ask you clear on the 15th, Mr. Whitney stated the same thing, to correspond with our, what's his name? Wilson. You did not do so. Mr. Wilson stated that he would be ready the next day.
I believe Mr. Wilson said he was going to be here today, too.
He did. He also said he's going to be ready. He also said the same. But at least you could
We're
have.
getting into the quibbling. I think it may lead us away. Now, maybe there's no possibility of adopting the plan.
Let me say one thing.
Just a moment. But I would like us not to quibble if we can address one another in a respectful way and let's talk about it.
Okay, it would have been a possibility that Mr. Wilson would have been here today, but since there was no correspondence, no nothing whatsoever, Mr. Wilson was not aware, and even the Board of Supervisors didn't know that you were going to present a plan up until they got here this morning. So how would you expect Mr. Wilson to fly from Atlanta, Georgia, to here to try to help us deal with a plan when he didn't know that you was going to be here? Had you corresponded like I was informed that you had been directed to do, and then maybe Mr. Wilson would have made reservation to be here this morning.
If these cameras were on last time like they are now, I defy you to find where anybody directed me to correspond with.
Well, that's what I was informed.
And we will also find on the tape that we did state that we would be back here in 2 weeks. They asked me to do it in 10 days. I said I would try to do it in 2 weeks with a plan.
We retract that we said you was directed, but it was, and that camera reapproved, that it was agreement between us and the Board of Supervisors that you and our planner would work together over that 2 week span. That was decided, and that was agreed to, that you all would work together and bring back about a plan that both sides should not be off from that far. Now, the camera approved that. That both
I'd like
of you
to see
all
that, but
should have
pardon
been
me.
made contact.
If that was said, and that was a misunderstanding on my part, I have never coordinated with anybody else to draw one of these plans in that way, and we probably would still be trying to draw plans. Matter of fact, I don't know if he was going to come to Mississippi and work with me, or if I was supposed to go to Atlanta and work with him. But that was not my understanding at all. There's just so much you can do on this on the telephone.
I would like to make a suggestion on what he just said, though.
C.B. Martin asked me when we first came in, he asked me, I have no idea what he wants to say, but he held his hand up, he said he wanted to say something briefly, so I called on him to speak up. He's from District 3 out of Casilla, where I was born and reared. I got to recognize him. C.B.?
I didn't know whether it was open to I'd like to make a statement on it. It may not make sense to some of you. You were speaking of electability here a minute ago. A majority is electable as far as I'm concerned, but that wasn't what I was going to say. You know, majority population, either way would be electable. I'm a World War II veteran. I served my country with an honorable discharge in about 11 months in the battle zone during World War II. For everybody here, with a democracy, which I understand is where people choose who they please to vote. And I don't understand really and truly why. I understand the redistricting to equalize the population. But why there's such a desire to bring one up to maybe 85 or 90% and the other down to 20%. If you have a majority of 60%, you're 10% over as far as population and voting percentage. And I'm not fighting anything and I'm just doing as far as a citizen. And I think any of you would, if you don't like the American democracy, maybe you would rather be with Hussein, somebody like that, but people that have given their lives for democracy, we don't understand really and truly what you asked. And as long as you get the majority, it looks to me like that then you could elect the man you want. And that's how simple it looks to me. if you stick together, and that's what you seem to be trying to do. I didn't know whether that board was open only to them or to everybody. But we are citizens, we pay taxes, we have the privilege of voting, we go to church, we do everything to support the country that any of you do. And we're not giving him a hard time. And the man's trying to work with you. It looks to me like he's gone overboard. But you try to look at our side. And I'm not in the districts down that you are. The district I'm in is 3, like J.W. said a while ago, Mr. Twitton. And I don't know, but you think about it from an American standpoint, not just the black or not just the white. And work these things out. We can make this government cheaper than it is by not causing confusion in it. We can all work together.
That's exactly what we've been trying to do. And I'm also from D3, and I'm also a World War II veteran. With 60% black in Tallahatchie County, with no black official.
With the freedom to vote for anybody?
Exactly, exactly. The majority rule, that's the first thing that I learned. Majority rule. 60% black in Tallahatchie County, 57% black VAP. And you can finagle those peoples around where it would continue in Tallahatchie County where no black would get elected. And that's exactly what comprehensive planners are doing. And I don't know who got you to speak. Of course, it is an open meeting. And how would you feel being in the majority with no elected official?
Here's what got me to speak when it said that there would be another meeting and the proposed plan was 63%, 78%, and 81%. That is not democracy way, it's freedom.
But, Eddie, I think we've been doing that long, everybody.
I'd like to say to the man there that World War II vet, and he talking about the American way, and then I know that he want to go by the law. And so the only thing we are asking is that comprehensive planners and everybody else in here just go by the law, and then we have no problem with that. We don't have to go over there where who's saying that. We don't have to go back to Africa because we've never been there before. So we just want to make that clear, that we don't have to go where who's saying that to be able to voice our opinion just like anybody else. In the past, when I've came to Board of Supervisors meeting, the only people that was allowed to speak or to be quoted was those that had an appointment to meet with the Board of Supervisors and those that put themselves on the agenda. But I see now that that policy has changed in Tallahatchie County, and that's one of the reasons that he don't feel the way that we do, because he has been given a special privilege, even here today, to be able to speak in a meeting that we was told that we have to be on the agenda, and if we weren't on the agenda, nothing that we say counted. Thank you.
Exactly. I think you've raised a terribly important question that we ought to discuss for a minute. You've raised a terribly important question, and we ought to discuss that and share with you why we're doing what we're doing and how we're thinking about it, so you'll understand where the areas of disagreement are, or appear to be. It's only 26 years since the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The question has to be, why did we need a Voting Rights Act in 1965 to begin with? Because you're talking about having gone to war, people having lost their lives for American democracy, right? Isn't that what you said? Right. That's right. Now, in 1965, in the state of Mississippi, and all over the Deep South, and in many other parts of the country, because it was a national problem and still is, black folks did not have the right to vote, were not allowed to register to vote, were not allowed to run as candidates, and to participate in that political process that you're calling American democracy, okay? And that needed to be remedied. Even though the 15th Amendment, which guaranteed the right to vote in 1870, not 1970, in 1870, right? Even though that was a guarantee then, through the use of the legal process and force and violence, black folks were systematically and almost totally excluded from the political process. Now, as a result of the struggle that went on after the Second World War, coming up through the 1950s and into the 60s, black folks getting together here and elsewhere and joining with others to demand that the right to vote be enforced, be available to everyone, regardless of race, in order to breathe life and meaning into the phrase American democracy, right?
Yeah.
They passed the Voting Rights Act, okay? And people began to have the opportunity, black folks had the opportunity for the first time in many cases, to begin to register to vote and to begin to participate in that political process. But it wasn't enough to be able to register to vote, because we knew from experience after the right to register to vote that systematically, in the absence of being able to elect people to office, that there was no accountability on the part of white politicians
Would you
who were
have-
elected officials.
Would you explain to no accountability on the part of white people?
That's
I mean,
right.
we
Let
all
me explain
have,
it.
we have the same privilege to vote, every one of us.
That's right. Let's talk about that. What you will find, if you do a survey, you talk to folks, let's say, all over the Delta, which I have done in the last 8 months, with this specific question in mind, the question of accountability of public officials. You will find that folks systematically will tell you that they do not feel that they are heard, that their needs and interests are represented in the boards of supervisors or in other areas where they have not had the opportunity to elect people of their own choice, whether they're white or black. The fact of the matter is, let me finish, please. The fact of the matter is that when a white candidate runs against a black candidate, regardless of qualification, the experience has been over the last 26 years that the white community will almost exclusively vote for the white candidate in what we call racially polarized voting or racial bloc voting, regardless of whether the black candidate has far superior qualifications. Okay, there's a sense, there's a feeling, there's a cultural attitude, which is understandable given the history, that no matter what, white folks are more comfortable in voting for a white person, regardless of qualification, than a black person. And when you're talking about a political campaign, you'll find that the white candidates systematically have access to all the institutions in the black community. But rarely, if ever, is a black candidate invited into or permitted into the white institutions to campaign on the same basis, or to campaign in white neighborhoods on the same basis. So when you're talking about people being free to do whatever they want to do, you have to talk about that in the context of reality. And let's talk about another part of that reality.
Could I say a statement right there?
Well,
You said the opportunity of being elected.
right.
Okay, if they run, every one of us, anyone, black or white, has the opportunity to vote for them. Is that right or wrong?
Let's talk about that. You're
I mean,
exactly.
no, just yes or no, yes.
Well, yes or no is not sufficient for this reason. If you were talking about a history, if you were talking about a history in which everyone had the opportunity for the same education and the same attitude that the political process belonged to them, that would be one thing. But in a situation, as you had here in Mississippi, in which it was not only, let's put it this way,
What is
you know and I know, you know and I know,
Call it back to order. Let's get back what we came
Let him
for.
say what he gotta say, Mr. Guy. Let him say what he gotta say.
I think this is important. You have a situation here where it was a crime in Mississippi. It was a crime to teach a black person how to read. It was a crime to attempt to get an education.
Not since 65.
Well, that's right. Since 1960, well, excuse me, the schools weren't integrated in Mississippi until about 69 or 71.
We spoke of getting an education.
That's right. And you're talking about a system which was designed in every way, and still is, if you want to put it on the table, to ensure that black folks are maintained in an inferior status, whether you're talking about politics, whether you're talking about education, whether you're talking about jobs and economics. The key is control. The key is, no, now, let me finish now, okay? You stood up and said, what is it you're all fussing about? Seems to me that they're being all reasonable about this. And what we're trying to get you to understand, if you want to understand where we're coming from, is that you can't look at this process as if there's no history. We start today and said, everyone's got the right to vote, so what's the gripe? The gripe is that we know from our history over the last 26 years that when there is a very great disparity in income and education, for example, in a community, that it is very difficult for the community which has less education and less money to compete effectively in the political campaign process. People don't start off on the same basis. And so, to make a long story short, the court cases and the Justice Department regulations have come to recognize that a 50-50 is not a 50-50 in reality. And in fact, in many communities, in order for the black community to have a fair and effective opportunity to elect representatives of its own choice, you need a 65% black voting age population, or even a 70% black voting age population. We're getting to the nitty-gritty. Well, I understand that. But the reason is, no, excuse me, the primary reason is that everyone in this community have an opportunity to understand this process.
We'll have another,
Let's get an order. The presiding officer will take over this meeting, and you're not going to argue with the presiding officer.
Well, I surely don't want to, but there's no reason for us not to give this meeting. I'm talking to the presiding officer now, Sheriff. There's no reason for him not to have an answer to his question. His question was fundamental, and it's complicated, and he deserves an answer.
I would like to say,
we came here to.
okay, I would like to say one thing then. If the sheriff is gonna beat with the hammer when people are voicing their opinions, when they was asked a question, if we have stuff to redistricting in the first place, instead of going out into the audience, we brought people here too. And then the man wouldn't have to get an answer to his question. But when you ask a question, it's always our intent that we have somebody here qualified to answer, and then we want to answer it. Now, if you don't want the answer to the question, don't ask it. And that'll settle that problem.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mullen, I had no idea what he was, I was known him all my life, all his life. And I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, can I have one? And if you're going to do that, I can step back and tell you about my rearing, how I came up with clean blacks and so forth.
Well, that's fine with me.
It's not anything people interested.
If you don't
I think we should follow this,
answer,
Let's get back on redistricting.
All right, now, do you all, let's go back to this. We have a question to ask about these plans, because I anticipate both supervisors, sometime in this session next week, will decide upon a plan and decide to give notice of that plan and how it's going to be, which plan it's going to be, and give the public notice to come and object to it if they want to, and if it doesn't go past by, well, in other words, you take it to court to it whether you want to. But I wanted to move on because there's still an off chance that we can get this thing by without in court. I think it's a very slim chance, but there's still an off chance.
When you said the board will decide on plan 1 or plan 2?
No, I said a plan.
I said, that's what I'm saying, decide on a plan, either plan 1 or plan 2. They will decide on a plan. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is that the board will elect a plan. I don't know whether it'll be a combination of all three of them we've seen, or maybe one of them only. Well, I just have no idea what they're going to come up with.
Okay,
I know that they're going to do what they're going to do the duty, which is to promote a plan.
Okay, will that be in a board meeting? Will it be advertised where the people can listen on to see who's voting for what plan, or how will it be
Of
conducted?
course, that'd be an open meeting when they vote on the plan, yet deliberations, but I don't know what that'd be. There won't be, there'll be some deliberative open meeting, but we'll talk to the plan for us, and the board's going to talk to me and talk to other people who are interested. I'm sure that some who,
We clarify, you're not suggesting that any deliberations would be done on this plan in executive session, right?
no, we're not going to do any in the executive session.
So there are not going to be any meetings
No.
privately with the planner, right?
Not-
They're all going to be public, right?
No, some of the meetings with the planner may be private. We
On what
don't,
grounds?
on the grounds, we want it to be private.
The open meeting law doesn't permit that.
We're not going to undertake to adopt anything, we're going to talk about it. We don't
No,
adopt
no,
anything.
if you look at the open meeting law, and
I've
the
read the
cases
open meeting law.
decided under that, they say that these kinds of discussions, these deliberations leading up to the decision, cannot be made in private.
Well, we're not going to make no.
You can't even discuss it in private. You can't review it in private. It's
Well,
gotta
I
be in the
can't
meeting.
go to the bathroom in private.
You
That's
certainly
something
can
you
do
just
that.
gotta do.
But the deliberations in this process, the discussions that you have that lead up to the decision-making process are part of what are expressly addressed in the cases under the open meeting law. And none of them can be done privately, not if you're going to follow the law. I just reviewed that on Friday with this question in mind. And I have no doubt that you cannot do that in private. The cases are clear. They were brought by Mississippi publishing companies that were, challenged, the action of various governmental institutions in order to clarify that. And the Mississippi Supreme Court was clear that you cannot do these things in private. These have to be done so the public can understand how the supervisors arrived at their decision, what their thinking process was, not simply what the decision was, but how they arrived at it. That's the accountability
We'll have to
process.
address that before the court, because I'm going to run a certain way. I'm going to do my best to guide the law, but I'm doing it my way, not sure.
Well, I understand that, but we're trying to save having to go to court over that issue, since that's been resolved already.
Okay, now, we have requested from day one that we be notified in the entire process. And we would like to be notified in the entire process. Now, this thing can drag on, and we don't intend to see this thing drag on. We intend to sell it one day. We intend to sell it one way or the other, sooner or later, and real soon, hopefully. This planner does not have any communication with anybody that's with us. The Board of Supervisors probably does not want to call a special meeting just to go back and look at a map, and then you probably couldn't get your planner there, even if you did. I think we need to go ahead on and move forward into trying to do something in the planner going on and getting us some copies of this map, because I don't think nothing can happen until we have time to sit down with copies of the map and everything and look at those copies of the map, and the board need to, at this time, set another time when these issues can be addressed, and let's address only redistricting issues and the public input. I know that that's gonna be and it's gotta be, but I think that it's too far down the road to go to bring a public in that don't even understand the Voters' Right Act of 1965 to start trying to address certain things.
We're not going to do that. The board will be in regular session next week. We don't, any kind of business we want to attend. But the public needs to know a time when they can come and give out the plan. We're going to decide that too, sometime next week. And notice will be given, and you know my office is always open to you. And when they want to come in and ask me any question, you can do it. You've done it for years, and you can do it.
Are you saying that next week at your regular meeting that you will adopt some plan?
I would guess that the board is going to, yes, it's going to be fine time to adopt some sort of plan and let people know what they're fighting against.
Is the plan that the redistricting committee presented to this board about a month ago, is it still in consideration?
It is.
Y'all still have a copy of it?
It's not been excluded, and we have copies of.
All three plans?
The
All
county
three.
administrator. I have just partial.
I would like to ask, when does the board plan to adopt the plan?
Well, it's hard to know how quickly you can get to a decision. It's kind of like when you go buy a new car.
When do you plan to have a hearing to
Sometime next
discuss
week.
our public hearing? Will we be notified?
If you want to be notified, we will.
Yeah, we definitely want to be notified, and I would request that it be,
I called you, I'll just,
okay,
that you give notice.
You plan to do it other than at your regular meeting? You're planning to do it especially?
I'm not planning anything beyond the regular meeting, and then they decide the regular meeting, whatever. No reason now to make a plan, but beyond next week.
Well, if you're not planning to decide on this until Monday, then you're probably talking about Friday, right? Because you're certainly not going to decide on Monday to decide on Monday, right? that you have no way to notify them.
I know, I think it takes more than that. I don't think that they even long get overhead, but I don't think we
You have to
do it
give
practical,
public
I don't think,
Right? You want to give public notice, right?
well, perhaps. I'm gonna give public notice of Amy, you know, and that particular one, I'm not sure. But I'm not sure.
But what we saying, Mr. Whitney, is that for you to have a meeting, to discuss this map, and it's going, and a meeting gonna be done, every citizen in this county must have the opportunity to come and be there and voice their opinion for or against that. And so what we're saying is you can't use a just a regular meeting unless it be every citizen in the county be known. And that's what you're gonna do. Redistricting gonna be brought up, and a decision might be made, it's gonna be made, not might be made, gonna be made on,
I got an opinion of the Attorney General right here, and I thought it Jackson.
you know, on that
Since
side.
what?
Yeah, but I told me, documents.
Could we get a statute?
Are you suggesting, why can't you decide today, for example, that next Friday, right, a week from this Friday is going to be the day on which people can expect you to deal with?
I can't say that simply because the board hadn't told me.
I mean, the board is here now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why can't you, as a matter of agreement, say, look, we'll let, everybody knows, and we'll publish in the paper that a week from Friday, that's the day that we're gonna deal with it, so people can know in advance.
Well, we wouldn't have enough time for full notice. If the paper comes out on Monday, I mean, it goes to bed on Monday, and we don't get it till Thursday. That's not enough time, really.
But that means
What are you
can't have it.
proposing? You don't want to have it the week after that?
I don't want to put it off any longer, I have to. But we have to if we're going to go strictly by the book, we got to give us certain days, and match our days, we have to do this. We have to put off the final adoption longer than we want to, simply because the statute says, the ordinance have to give a certain number of days.
So you could decide today on what day that is, right?
But
So we'll all
the
know.
board didn't agree. The board didn't agree, I get it.
They can't do it, right?
Yes, but I don't know whether they're going to agree on plan now.
Let me ask you.
No, I know, but
When are you gonna discuss whether they're gonna agree on the plan? When
I
are
haven't
you
idea.
gonna discuss?
I have an idea that they talk over the weekend just to look at it.
Well, we need to be in on that, Mr. Whitman. But I wanna know how my supervisor, Justin, feel about that plan, and I wanna know how he feel about the one that we put there, and he hasn't been allowed to talk to the same thought. And hopefully, we can get him to talk. And I want to know how my supervisor feel now. Whether the rest of the public care about what their officials think, that's not my problem. But I want to know how B5 supervisor feel.
If you just contact my office, I'm sure they'll let me know.
What do you mean they can meet over the weekend?
I said they're going to talk to people over the weekend. They go to church and somebody say, well, how's this thing? What are you doing? Talk to them about it. Hey, supervisor got a program right there.
I've been totally confused with the process is, by which meetings are going to be set, and deliberations are going to be taken as a board. What they do privately is, in terms of talking to people in the community, I'm not concerned.
I'll say all that we're going to do as a board, as far as I now know, is to meet on Monday, in regular session.
And on Monday, is the redistricting going to be on the
I
agenda?
told you I don't know where it is now. I assume that it's because we need to move with it, but
You're saying, I understand you're saying you don't know. Okay, we have all 5 representatives of the county. If they can sit up in this order and we as taxpayers still paying their salary, and they can't sit here and deliberate to this order when they can meet and when not to meet, I don't even think they should be sitting there. But yet still you are not elected, you're appointed, and you are the lawyer, but you're saying you don't know. We got all 5 of them up there now. Let them speak to where they can sit down and have a meeting with this order.
This is not a legal question.
No legal question
They
whatsoever.
can make that decision now to call a board meeting, and the president is there.
and you know enough to know that you can't stand under pressure to make 5 people.
No, but we're not saying under pressure. The only thing we're saying is that we need to.
about setting a meeting date.
We're going to meet Mondays, we're going to meet Monday, and regular meeting. Everybody's invited to Sumner Courthouse, at 10 o'clock.
And which courthouse?
Sumner.
And are you suggesting that on Monday, that one of the possibilities is that they could vote on a plan?
No, I'm not saying they're going to vote on the plan on Monday. But they will hope be a whole lot closer to deciding what they're going to do on Monday than they are today, since we're going to have time to think about it. Read these things and study it, learn about it.
But I'm asking about the process you're going to use to get the decision. Is there going to be a meeting at which we're going to have an opportunity to respond to these plans before you decide, or on the same day that you decide?
I'm supposed to keep you up to date, but I'm not gonna be directed to what I do and when I do it. I'm gonna do it.
We're not trying to direct you, we're trying to ask, we're trying to stay in the process. We don't want to wake up some morning and find out you've adopted a plan. How do you expect us to find out about it? It's not a personal matter between
I know,
Mr.
but he's
Meeks
your
and
spokesman,
you.
he's the one out there was going to have you all the rest of it put together. Okay.
Keep wrong.
I would like for that to be corrected because you're making it seem like as if I've been slipping under your arm.
Oh,
I'd like for that to be straight right now.
All I know is they never, tell everybody, all I know is they never sit up my own.
I would like for that to be corrected so that the public would know that I have never slipped up to your arm. I don't intend to. So I would like for that to be corrected as a matter of the record. And we would like to know, when does the Board of Supervisors, and there's no reason why this group right here, right now, can't know when does the Board of Supervisors intend to meet and to discuss adopting this map. And another thing, we need to know, when is this planner going to get us copies of this map so that our committee can sit down and look at this map and scrutinize it to the point that we feel that we got to get our legal heads here. And another thing, before I get through, the Board of Supervisors, if you all don't intend on speaking at any of the meetings that we come to, we would like to request that the Board of Supervisors be taken off the county payroll until they decide to open their mouth and let their attorney be the only one that get paid for this redistricting meeting. And it would save the taxpayers.
Why don't we just request that the Board of Supervisors be put on the agenda and then they get a chance to speak? They'll have to speak then. Why don't we request that they be put on the agenda?
Possibly you get in the meeting.
Be an enemy to speak. They're on the agenda, they gotta answer. They're on the agenda, they gotta answer.
Your full plan.
Yeah, so otherwise.
Are we ready to break?
Whenever you get it.
I would suggest you,
I mean,
simply draw the lines and look at the date.
we certainly would like to have,
if we're-
the district committee would like to have a copy of your plan.
If we've got some maps available here, we can draw lines on it. Anybody can draw their own. We're talking about having some maps printed and presented to you.
And we got some that,
Yes, sir, I do
Draw
have
some over.
They're not this big, they're
This small.
18 by 24.
To the highway.
Got something we can
State
draw
highway
lines
map.
on it and copy.
Right.
this afternoon.
We need to have a copy.
Okay, when can we get the copies? And that stuff that's drawn out on it.
This afternoon.
And I'd like to say one more thing to the planner. The planner is specifically, I don't believe he's understanding his position here. The planner stated that he worked for the Board of Supervisors. Well, the Board of Supervisors worked for us. This taxpayers' money y'all spending here, and that little scenario that you got there, I don't know, unless they intend to pay this out of their pocket. I would suggest that the public be more informed on what's going on. Because we're not informed, we don't even have copies of the map. We requested from Jump Street that if he was gonna come down here, at least he should have brought 2 copies of the map. So if you all are really interested in getting this thing redistricted and getting it moved at a time in which the circuit clerk can get his stuff together and we can be able to educate people as to where they're at.
We believe, the circuit clerk believes that the voting machine's gonna be all right this time. It looks like, with your help.
Well, with the community's help, with the community's help.
There's something we're overlooking. This was intended, if I'm not mistaken, as a negotiation process, right? That's what we were talking about.
You forgot it pretty quickly, don't you?
No, I haven't forgotten it. What I see, though, happening is that now that he's presented this plan, you've heard our plan, and now he's presented this plan, your sense of the negotiation process is dissolved because you're not talking about our having a chance to review this and having any interest in getting back together to talk about how we might resolve this without the necessity of litigation. And that's what I'm hearing, which is that you're preparing, at some point we'll close this discussion, And what they do after that is a mystery, at least as I've heard it so far. And I haven't heard any suggestion from you that you have any interest in doing anything other than setting a time that the public will find out what they're deciding. Now, if that's the case, that's the case, but I want to put that on the table about what's happening to this negotiation process. I don't hear any interest in that, and I think that the spirit of that is in part in coming with only one plan. You knew that you wouldn't be able to leave us with a copy that we could work from in an expeditious way and get and continue the
Don't
process.
put attitudes in my mind. I did not come with that purpose.
Okay, but then if you
I'm
want
not in the habit of furnishing a lot of maps on a plan that hasn't been accepted to get spread all over.
But this is not a habit situation. We're talking about a negotiation. What should happen here, if you wanted to complete this process, is that we caucus for a while with a copy of this plan, discuss it, and see whether or not we have some suggestions that might make this livable or not. And you have some suggestions which might make this livable or not. Presumably, the board did not see this before 9 o'clock this morning. So you could caucus, and we could caucus and discuss this. I don't hear any interest in that. So I'm asking up front.
First time it's been brought up.
No, it isn't. It was on the table that what this was supposed to be was a negotiation process.
This was supposed to be for me to present a plan.
And, well, okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought I heard.
Into the grade.
That's what was said. Clear and simple. But then you just brought up negotiation, and if you want to negotiate, I don't see any problem.
I guess I just wanted to put that on the table.
I thought so too, 2 months ago, we were gonna get 6 people. 6 people from each community and agreeable, and that's what the minutes of the board supervisors reflect we were gonna do, but.
Given where we're at now, what is your proposal for how we would continue the negotiation process?
Well, I would like, you're not going to agree with how we go about it, but I'll tell you that in front. I'd like this to happen. I'd like this man to sit down with me. I don't want to see anything. Sit down with me and let me understand what the plan is about. And understand the third plan that came in from Mr. Wilson, which was not all bad, by the way. I never said it. Sit down and pick and go over those and pick out the points that we think may not be acceptable to many people, as few people as possible, make it acceptable to as many people as possible. Come before the board of supervisors and say, I'm your lawyer, and here's your plan, that's what we're going to recommend to you. Let's get out of the courtroom now and recommend this plan to you, let me go over it. Some member of the board, if it suits you, move it to be passed, someone second it, and vote on it. Offering to have debate it.
I didn't hear us included in that whole discussion.
But now, I'm gonna tell you.
We're not going to debate among ourselves. You'll be.
I would like to ask Mr. Whitten, is that little decisions, if it's not a legal question, that the board of supervisors be able to answer their constituents here, because now these people are paid by taxpayer dollar, and a lot of people are very upset the fact that the board of supervisors can't answer a little question like, when can we call another meeting to discuss this? Now that don't make no sense. We're paying these people almost $200 an hour, and they can't decide when we're going to call. Almost $200 an hour in the last month. We paid them over $400 an hour because didn't none of them say nothing. Everything we paid them. As a matter of fact, we could have paid them over $1,000 an hour because they didn't say nothing 2 hours. One of them gave up their right to speak on Monday, and he said, I'm not asking any questions till Friday. When Friday comes, then you clipped his right to speak, and he couldn't speak at all that week. So he just wasn't that in line down.
The only reason we're doing that is to try to make.
I understand that we
give you all a chance, not to give the board a chance, but to give you all a chance to present what you have to say in a manner in which we can hear it and understand it.
I understand that board of supervisors should respect the fact that you are their legal, their attorney. But I don't even see board of supervisors even listening to one another to tell you what to say from it. And that's very, very embarrassing in Tallahatchie County. The fact that they don't even say if we ask a question and maybe they can't, if they don't want to answer themselves, but like they should get a line going and one of them tell you what to say in reference to that.
They don't do that because we just don't do business, but they know that I'm going to do my part. I'm not going to chill with that. One question back here. We're going to take one more back here. Somebody wants to say something.
I understand that none of the supervisors can talk.
No, you don't understand.
What kind of meeting is it that a supervisor can't open his mouth and say and speak his word?
Well, lots of meetings like that, of course.
I guess it's like the paper I got from the government. Me and a white fellow from Greenwood went to Memphis to the Veterans Administration office. His paper was for $39,000, mine was for $36,000. We met up in Grenada on Monday, that following Monday. They give him his $39,000, give me some paper to sign, and I ain't heard no more from him today. You talking about equal right for black men in the state of Mississippi? That ain't so.
I would all have different opinions, but
Public display, anybody come by and look at it?
we could, that'd be a good idea to make a, put them down, yeah, let's do it, make some copies. I think the copy machine is something, we can copy the map, but it's a good idea, put some around, we'll do that. I'll see.
Are you gonna put all 3 plants or
We get copies all there, we'll put them all. He promised to do it, but we get them already first.
You have the copy, Moore's copy.
Yeah.
I got that from one of the board members.
We don't have the right in this way in session to overrule the map. We don't know no more about the map right now than they do.
I agree, that was, I think they should be sure that it's needed.
I mean, you know, I didn't know.
Now, let's see, that lady back on, she won't speak, I didn't.
I wanted to ask, why is it that since everybody is here today, these people and the supervisors, you all can't sit down at the table today and say, look, the supervisor say, look, we don't like this, and you say, look, I don't like this. Compromise. This thing is going on and on and on. We the one that's paying for this. I don't appreciate my money keep going on and on and on and going to a suit. My taxes are going up every year while you sit here and debate over this and debate over this. Sit down and talk. That's what I'm saying. Let's sit down and talk. We don't have to, this side have their opinion, this side have their opinion. Don't waste my money. Talk to each other.
That's the only way to be settled. I agree with you.
These ain't saying nothing. These are saying what they, but one side's saying something, one side's saying nothing. They're letting you talk. Talk together, compromise.
At the first meeting we had, I think you brought out that same point. And we went and we sit down and we went back and drew in your ideas. We had the plan that we presented, I think, took one of the supervisors out of his beat. Your very good understanding said we should put him back in. Our group went, sit down, did that, came back, and what happened? Here we are now.
That's what I'm saying.
Did exactly what you said. So who is the stalemate? You should see now who the stalemate is.
That's what I'm saying. There's been one piece of compromise, but out of 3 maps, and all of you people that have the understanding of what's going on, stop wasting my money. Sit down and talk. If you're going to raise my taxes to better Tallahatchie County, don't send it off drawing maps everywhere. Keep it here. I want my money going to my schools that's in pitiful shape, and my roads that's in pitiful shape. Keep my money here. Talk to each other. Now, here today with 3 maps and all you people, y'all could figure something out. You can come to an understanding.
I agree that the wheels of justice, if you want to call that what this is, we grind kind of slowly. But fortunately, it doesn't cost any more to do this, and the court cost more. This particular thing doesn't cost anything for the kind of concern other than the amount we pay claimants.
But it's the spirit of what she's talking about, not just the specifics. She's saying, let's get this job done. And she says she doesn't understand why it can't be done quickly with all of the resources that are gathered. And I frankly don't understand why it can't either. That's why I was asking about this negotiation
The paperwork's here.
But the main thing.
You know what you want. They know what they want. There's got to be compromise or nothing's going to be settled. And if it's not settled, where are we going? To court to spend some more of my money that could stay here. I don't, in my opinion, I want my supervisor to think long and hard about this, to look at this, to ask you, well, what do you want? And if you say, well, this is what I want, he said, well, I can go with you this far on this. Or you turn around and go this far with me on this. But this has been dragging out and out and out, and from what I see, nobody's sitting down talking. This side's going and saying their opinion, this side's going and having their decision, and nobody is sitting together and saying, look, I'll give this much and you give this much. Everything we do has got to be over a little bit of compromise on both sides, or we will all be paying through the nose, and we don't have anything to show for it except paying lawyers.
She is saying exactly right, and what we have asked you to do from day one, which was in January, to work with us. We want to work with the board of supervisors. We want to, and we want to sit down and talk where we can come with the understanding what this plan would suit both black folk and white folk. As of today, we know, and y'all study saying we cannot stand another lawsuit, and that's exactly what you're gonna get into, another lawsuit. And you specifically stated yourself that you is not gonna be the person to do it. You know, you want something to hide behind. The court's gonna have to do it. And then you will have something to hide behind. We didn't do it, the court's done it. So that's exactly what's gonna happen. And we, just like this lady said, we can say, I'm planning on living in Tallahatchie. I'm not going any place. Okay, now we can sit down, grown people, because we know Tallahatchie County, and we can work together. But you don't give us opportunity to work together. So our next step is the courts, and that's exactly what we're here to do.
Amen.
Anybody else? We're about to conclude.
Well, do you have any interest in
Yeah, we're gonna get the
pursuing
map
what her
first.
suggestion?
We're gonna get the maps, and we're gonna have to start. We're gonna talk about it.
But you don't want to do it today?
We're gonna do it as soon as we can.
No, but I mean, you don't want to talk any further today, is what you're saying.
No, I don't think it's bad to. No, I'm not. I have.
Well, I'm saying this is what goes on. You don't want to talk today. Today, start today. Not last week. We should have started 3 weeks ago when the thing started sitting at the table. Not tomorrow or next week. I'll talk to you next week. Start today and we'll get it over with.
Basically, what I want to say is with this committee is prepared to stay to 12. Y'all can, they can, we ready to go in. I want everybody out there to hear this. We ready to go in, lock us in that jury room over there. Somebody order the coffee, order dinner. We ready to sit down and work this thing out. Today, we ain't ready to go home. We prepared to stay here. I am. To deliberate that it take us 2 days. You just lock us up. We ready to go.
I think basically this committee that's right here, right now, can sit down and help that plan there. Give that plan our input and he use it. And we could have everything pretty much in line today. And we could be ready to go to our attorney and get our legal advice and go to our planner and get his advice as to percentages. And I think we would be ready to move this thing and instead of dragging it out, I'm ready to get it over too because
We'll do our best to get you the plans in your hands this afternoon, as soon as possible.
we need to get back with you all and get this problem.
Well, if you got to have a caucus, you got to sit and talk about yourself, or you know where you.
But we're ready to be here, what he's saying is we're ready to be here all day. It's 12 o'clock. We could caucus for a while. Y'all could caucus for a while. We could go back and forth with the plan in terms of, you know, moving lines if necessary and some percentages and so forth and come to some resolution by the end of the day and meet her concerns of putting an end to the money flow, the sieve that this represents.
I'll talk to the planner and see what he can do. I don't know what his plans are, but his.
Are you available for the rest of the day?
Well, they got it behind.
So he can stay and supervises opinion here? The recommendation? He can stay? He can stay? We got at least 3. I missed the third one. Can you stay? You got 4 of them. The 5th one's not here. They can stay. You're right. Sneak over here. Can you stay? Yeah, I can stay. All right. So we can all hang in here. We need an hour. Give us an hour to caucus. Roughly, you take an hour. Maybe we can get a little nourishment while we're chatting over this, and maybe we can work it out.
try. We get the map on quick enough. Moving on fast as possible. I'll have to leave 2:30.
You have to leave at 2:30? Wait a minute, let's get this resolved, folks, as to what we're talking about. Because if we're gonna stay, we've had a process up to now in which Mr. Whitten has been the spokesperson for the board. Mr. Whitten says he has to leave at 2:30. That's a very compressed, time frame. We need a time to caucus, you need time to caucus. 2:30 is cutting it pretty short. We're gonna spend the afternoon here, right?
Well, let's see about it. So what time you want to meet back? What time can you meet back? 1 o'clock, 12:30?
Well, 12:30 won't give us enough time to.
No, we gotta eat dinner first, man.
Well, how about we meet at 1:30 here? We meet at 1:30. How about that? Give us a chance to get us something.
Let's be back here at 1:30.
Because we need a
And then
chance
get
to
the
work
board of
with the
supervisors
plan.
chance to call us and look at the plan and give us a chance. Well, we ain't got one plan, so.
How are we gonna do that, by the way, between now and 1:30?
We go eat dinner.
You can leave the plan in here. We can come, we borrow it when they're not using it, they'll borrow it when they're using it. We'll draw some. We can get a plan from you now.
Yes, sir, I got it right down
All
there,
right, so how
y'all.
about 1:30?
Can we get something now?
You can draw it. Let's do that.
We'll go get that.
If you've got some maps, why don't we sketch some and agree that they're the same as what I've got?
Stand right there, I'm gonna get you first and I'll get him next. I can't move on me now.
It's gonna be
It's gonna be something else. You're the president of the Tallahatchie County Redistricting Committee. We got all right. Next meeting, that's good. From your original plan that you gave them to consider, and he said he didn't consider it, what are the main differences between the two plans he put forward today?
Basically, we want the main differences until this evening at our guy caucus. We're gonna look at this plan more closely. Look at our plan, and then from there, we can go a long way.
The last time I was here, he said y'all want to when you get a bend a little bit, you give a little bit, they're going to get back and they're going to move.
Whatever they feel is better after we have we will be about that.
You think that this could be done?
Be done within a day. The only problem is the board of supervisors.
Cutting us out. So what they're doing now is trying to shove something down our throat in which we're not going to accept it.
So what you're telling me is that you prefer an approach of negotiation rather than one of a civil suit?
Right. So we can just sit down and talk, because I'm planning on staying here. I'm not going anyplace. And if we can talk, naturally, we can bring things together and come out.
Well, we're ready to go. And Mr. Sayers asked that he be committed to address some questions to someone, and Mr. Sayers is glad to hear them.
Well, we've taken a look at plans as presented and the data as you presented. And we have a number of concerns. One, it would be very helpful if we could have the census block data information which supports your number. We provided that in support of our plan, both by, if I recall correctly, drawing the plan on a census block map in the first place, but also giving you the computer printout on the census block data in support of the summary of numbers. We don't have that formula, and so we're at somewhat of a disadvantage in manipulating the data along the lines that you've drawn. So let me first ask whether we can get that formula. Do you have that here?
I may have it for one of the plans, I know I don't have it for all of it, can be wrong.
Our primary interest at this point would be having it for Plan 2. That would make it easier for you.
I have something that I think is it, I'll have to review it to be sure.
Because if we could make a photocopy of that, that would advance the ballgame, you know, at this point. If you don't have it here, how fast can we get it from you?
I'm going back, run the computer, measurements, right?
Right, so that conceivably could be put in the mail this afternoon.
The two blocks are 120 miles.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's wrong. So you could send that in the mail tomorrow? All right. And could you send that directly to Mr. Meek?
Address.
Post Office Box 114. I write down, sir.
The way I tried to read a copy of the data that was furnished to me, and I don't know how many times it had been copied, and it was not very readable. I would like to have yours on that. I think I'll be glad to show you the copy.
Did you call
Not reading.
Mr. Wilson and ask him for a clear copy?
I didn't know where it came from.
Did you call Ms. Karen, any of us? We would have been glad to provide that if that would have helped you in the front. Yeah. But that's one. Two, we have some real concerns about why your black voting age percentages in 2 of the 3 districts are lower than the ones that we presented in our plan, our proposed plan, and are also lower than they exist at the present time under the present districts, under the 1990 census. And we're concerned about that because at our first meeting with the board when we presented the plan, at least 4 of the supervisors indicated that they could live with the percentages in terms of black voting strength. They were concerned at seeing how the lines were drawn, what the actual contours of their districts would be, and wanted a chance to study that. But that the numbers on their face were not ones that they had a problem with. They could live with that. And in terms of trying to expedite the negotiation process and finding areas of common agreement and reducing the areas of disagreement, if the supervisors could live with the numbers in our proposed plan, and we can live with the numbers in our proposed plan, and our numbers, which they can live with, do not dilute black voting strength as it now exists, so as to be in compliance with the requirements of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, we've made a major leap forward in coming to an agreement. And the problem with Plan 1 and 2 is that you've drawn is that neither one of those meets the numbers on black voting strength, voting age population strength that we've proposed and that the supervisors already indicated they could live with. And I'm especially concerned because we went out of our way 2 weeks ago to indicate that to you as part of the presentation, and you indicated that you heard what was said, and that you took that into account in drawing the plan, but then your final results neglect to incorporate one of the principal elements of our concern, which the supervisors already indicated they could live with. And so I am, suggesting that since we feel we need to go back to the drawing board to make some modifications, which we can't do in this context anywhere near as quickly as to expedite it this afternoon, in order to we're going to try to work with the lines of our plan and the lines of your plan and try to create a framework that meets at least our original numbers. And we would like to ask you to attempt to do the same, since the supervisors have already indicated they could live with our numbers, and propose that we meet again Monday afternoon to compare updated proposals around this, proposition.
I thought that was what we were doing this afternoon.
Well, I know we've attempted to work with the materials you provided. We don't have the benefit of the census block data that you worked with, and we don't think that we can draw those lines and know adjust those lines and know accurately the consequence of those adjustments at this point, and so that we don't want to be foolhardy in making a proposal to you that we can't support ultimately, or that you can't support, or that you won't understand, or that we won't understand. That's rushing rather than being methodical, and I'm sure you would agree that when it comes to planning, you want to be methodical. We would have been a big step ahead if your numbers had at least met the minimum numbers that the supervisors indicated they could live with, but they don't. And so we'd like to come back Monday afternoon, which is 4 or 5 days hence, right? This is Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, so 5 days hence. We'd like to have a proposal in hand that we're going to present to you. We'd like you to have one, if possible, to present to us, which would meet those numbers. And we will be very, very much closer to home in terms of a resolution of this thing that will save both time and money. And we're talking, we don't want litigation unnecessarily any more than you do, because we know that we're talking about somewhere in the area of $100,000 of unnecessary expenditure. And in that spirit, we'd like to propose that we reconvene on Monday afternoon. However, subject to hearing what you all have to say as a result of your comments. Oh, yeah, right, that's right.
Just to say, I don't think the board wants to meet on Monday at all. Now, I may have spoken out myself this morning, but Monday is the day that we have lots of other just routine matters that we must attend.
I'm not hung up about Monday.
Good.
I mean, we were proposing that, obviously subject to your response.
I'm not trying to do anything to put it off other than say that.
I don't understand that. But you can see how early we would like to attempt to do that. We don't think this Friday would be enough time in order to get everything drawn up that way. But we want to work with those numbers, and we want to work with those lines. We're obviously unhappy with the percentages that you've put on the table because they're less than what the supervisors have already indicated they could live with. And there's no need for us to go back.
Let's don't press it.
You won at the meeting that day.
Let's don't press it, because you point out the one man that he can live with another, and that's not a vote.
Well, I understand that. But in the negotiation process, it is helpful when people give indications to each other as to where the areas of concern are. And that was one of the reasons why we had addressed in a systematic way at that first meeting whether the numbers on their face were a matter of concern for the supervisor, because they certainly meant a lot to us. We worked very hard to get to those numbers, right? So we did that. They weren't concerned about those numbers. They could live with them. They were concerned about the contours, primarily, and wanted a chance to study in a specific way each of their districts to see how they felt about it. We understood that. We didn't have a problem with that. But we certainly, from a negotiation point of view, don't want to start out from the premise that we're working backwards and diluting black voting strength as the path. And we are in the Plan 2, which is the better of your two plans. Your Plan 2 does that. It works backwards from our starting point and from what the supervisors have already indicated, at least preliminarily, they were not disturbed about. And so we want to work with your lines and our lines to increase those percentages, to ensure that we have a fair opportunity in the election process, because that's what it's about. It's not a question of just cosmetics. Do the lines look nice and do the numbers sound good? We're concerned about whether, in fact, the districts are winnable districts in a fair election. And that's the struggle, because no black has ever won for supervisor in the county. And that's what needs to happen. When you got a 60% black county, there needs to be some representation of the black community on the board. That's fairness, okay? So that's what we're struggling to accomplish. So we want to come back as early next week as you can agree to come back and exchange new plans if possible, unless you're saying you're not simply going to do that. You'll look at ours, but you won't attempt to draw another plan. That's your position. If that's your position, that's your position. But we'd like to indicate to you what it will take to get a settlement of this thing. We're struggling with that, and we think that if you can meet our numbers, you'll be a lot closer to ultimately settling it. We're going to try to do it in a way which takes into account the concerns you've already expressed. We indicated that, I think, in good faith at the very first day. When we presented a plan, you had a concern. We came back and tried to adjust for that concern right then and there. We got on the phone, we got on the computers, and we tried to draw an adjustment. We don't feel we can do that with the time we have this afternoon. We don't have the same tools available to us immediately. We need a few days to do that. But we have hopes that we can come to a fair understanding of where the meeting ground is. But we're alerting you to what comes at us right up front in this discussion, and that is the percentages. They're too low. Even though I know that you've raised District 5 to 68%, and that's laudable. But in so doing, you also reduced 2 and 4, where there had never been a victory. And we think that you've got to look more creatively at how to draw those lines so that 2 and 4 don't have to be reduced in that manner. And when you talked very appropriately in your presentation about setting priorities. And you're right. There are a number of factors to consider. But the contour of the district is not a higher priority than electability. And we got to look at that electability. And one of the elements in electability is the cohesiveness of the black communities in that situation. For example, in District 2, we think you could do better in Charleston in terms of retaining the cohesiveness of the black